While Grand Final glory is the ultimate goal for each of the 18 AFL clubs, the fact is only one team can win the flag each year. A lack of silverware, however, doesn't necessarily mean the season was a failure. In this video, we look into what the team at Footy A to Z think every AFL team has to achieve this year in order to consider their season a success. Adelaide. Adelaide missed the finals for the second straight year after having been runners-up in 2017, then proceeded to clear out their list, offloading a lot of experienced players to rival clubs. While the dreaded R word may still be a while away, the Crows are looking to transition their playing list. New coach Matthew Nicks is adamant the team is not rebuilding, so avoiding a bottom 4 finish would prove this to the doubters, while giving the Crows a year to blood some young talent. Brisbane. The Lions exceeded expectations last year by climbing to second spot. Due to their rapid rise and young list, we don't think missing out on the top 4 will mean the Lions' season is a failure. Rather, if Brisbane are able to consolidate their climb up the ladder with a top 8 finish, they must aim to win at least one finals game, which will give the young side plenty of confidence for seasons to come. Carlton. If they can avoid blowouts and knock off a top team or two along the way, then the Bluebaggers might not mind waiting another year or two before sustainably pushing for finals. In 2019, 9 wins was enough to break out of the bottom 4, and Carlton will need to do just that if they want to call their season a success and signal that they're ready to rise back up the ladder. Collingwood. After grand final and preliminary final losses, Collingwood faced growing pressure to get their hands on premiership glory under Nathan Buckley. While their premiership window is by no means over, the Magpies are tipped by many to compete once again, and anything less than a flag this season would be seen as a missed opportunity. Essendon. After a shaky recruiting period, Essendon will be out to build towards more consistent football. Repeating last year's efforts and making the top 8 again should be considered a success, and it would go a long way to providing a stable platform for Ben Rudden to build on from next year, as the Bombers begin what they hope will be a smooth transition period. Fremantle. Fremantle will be watched with curiosity as they find their identity under new coach Justin Longmuir. Fans' eyes will gaze with optimism towards the scoreboard and hope their side can start playing a higher scoring style than what they've been offered in recent years. Increasing on last year's tally to win 10 games should be enough to signify a step in the right direction, so long as they also get as many games into their recent draft picks as possible. Geelong. After now having lost a preliminary final in 3 of the last 4 seasons, Geelong needs to go a step further and at the very least make the grand final before their premiership window closes. While the departure of Tim Kelly and an ageing list has many predicting the Cats will slide down the ladder, anything less could point uncertainty towards Chris Scott's future. Gold Coast. It's hard to put any sort of metric on Gold Coast's season. Even if they finish dead last, there could still be plenty of positives to take from it. Less blowouts will be a good place for them to start. After losing 8 games by over 10 goals last year, limiting that number to 1 or 2 will be a big step forward. By the end of the season, Stuart Dew will want to have gotten as much experience into his kids as possible, and have arrived on a basic idea of what his best 22 looks like, giving the Suns some stability to build on for the next few seasons. Greater Western Sydney. GWS seem to be getting less credit than they deserve to repeat last year's efforts. The team will only strengthen as Stephen Coniglio and Callan Ward return, and anything less than another grand final appearance would be considered a step backwards, and therefore an unsuccessful year. They will want to go one step further in 2020 and raise the club's inaugural flag. Hawthorn. The return of Tom Mitchell and the recruitment of John Padden should see the Hawks' aspirations return to the pointy end of the ladder. Anything less than finals would be considered a failure. And while fans might settle for anywhere in the top 8, Clarko will have his gaze set firmly on the top 6. Melbourne. The biggest form of success for the Demons in 2020 would be to completely erase the memory of last year. 11 wins should be the bare minimum, meaning if they don't manage to make the finals, they must narrowly miss out. Max Gawn's men will arguably be the biggest wildcard of 2020, and how they begin their campaign will be watched with great interest. North Melbourne. After years of missing out on big-name recruits, North Melbourne settled for a crop of players capable of carrying the load between them. They will look to find a firm identity under Reece Shaw. While being competitive would be a pass mark, success for the Shinboners lies in an authoritative return to the top 8. Port Adelaide. Whether they're ready or not, Port Adelaide have stated it's finals or bust for Ken Hinkley. With an embarrassment of young talent, Port Adelaide must find the right balance in their side to navigate the pressure of an expectant fan base during their 150th anniversary. If they were to make the 8 and then win a final, it should give their fans enough to cheer about and keep the coach safe for another year. Richmond. Richmond haven't lost any of last year's grand finalists, bar Brandon Ellis, and after missing out on a precious opportunity to go back-to-back in 2018, anything less than another premiership will prove unsatisfactory to the Tiger Army. If they can do just that and get more games into young players along the way, the D word might just have more merit for discussion. St Kilda. It's all aboard the hype train in St Kilda, as a fruitful off-season has many expecting them to make a substantial push to return to the top 8. Considering how much noise has come from both their fans and the club, it would be embarrassing if they find themselves out of the top 8 contention come season's end. Yet, it should also be considered that new arrivals often take time to settle in, and the coach has been there for less than a season, so a top 10 place should be considered satisfactory. Sydney. After a trade period that promised a lot and delivered very little, many now see hopes of Sydney's season resting on the fitness of Buddy Franklin. With a team of bright young players, the Swans are just around the corner from becoming something special, but might just take another year or two to get there. 8 wins sees them break even with last year, which would signal they're on the right track, but even more important will be the continued development of promising kids into their A-grade players. West Coast. West Coast will be on the hunt for another premiership and have recruited Tim Kelly to do just that. And while their sights are set firmly on a flag, many of their best players are going nowhere in the coming years. If they can go one step better than last year and make a preliminary final, they will be set up for another era of success. The Western Bulldogs. The Western Bulldogs will look to improve on last year's return to the top 8, and success for them would lie in a top 6 finish. While fans will be determined to grab a top 4 spot and compete for the flag, a home elimination final should be considered a good result, especially if they win it, as their young but talented side continues to develop as a playing group. The 2020 season should be a fascinating journey. Let us know in the comments what you think your team needs to do to consider this year a success, and subscribe for plenty more AFL content as the season continues.